In this video, I want to talk about a drilling concept that is for more advanced players. And this is drilling in combination. And I basically mean drilling in combination even with the techniques that you're shown in class. Now here's the disclaimer, because this is going to be a controversial type of topic. If you choose to do this, make sure, first of all, that you understand the follow-up. You understand what you're going to be adding to your movement, so then that way you're actually doing it technically well. And before then, make sure you talk to your coach about it, and also talk to your training partners as well. So if you decide to apply this concept within your training, ask your coach if you are allowed to do it within the class, and also tell your training partner about it too, so that way they're not caught off guard by what you're doing. And basically what this is adding something to whatever technique that you're learning. For example, let's say for example I do a Kimura, right? I'll say to Chris, like, hey, I'm going to do the Kimura exactly how I'm shown, but I'm also going to add like a little extra movement at the end, all right? So I'm just letting him know. If he doesn't agree with it, then he'll say like, hey, let's just work on the technique. Then you got to find another partner within your rotation or in another class to do it. That's the peril of drilling with another individual. You know, you can't do jiu-jitsu by yourself, so you have to deal within the confines of a partner. I already talked to my instructor. He said it's cool because he knows that like I'm advanced. Let's say I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 5 years, which is a decent amount of time, and I understand a large amount of movements. I'm at a point, let's say my jiu-jitsu, like I told Chris, I'm at a point in my jiu-jitsu life, doing 14 years of jiu-jitsu, where I don't want to drill stuff in a singular fashion. I always want to add things at the end, because in that way I'm drilling transitions and I'm drilling combinations. Jiu-jitsu does not happen in singular movements. Like, you need to know combinations, transitions, and setups. If you don't know those things, then you're not going to get as good as you should. So once again, like I was explaining, I have Chris inside my guard and I'm going for a Kimura, right? If I was just drilling in a singular fashion, I would come here, I would get the Kimura, and then I would do it again here, and then I get the Kimura. But if I'm drilling in combination and I add one thing to it, I'm not saying add 3 or 4 things, because that's when it starts going across the boundaries of what you should be doing in class. But here, I come here, I go for the Kimura, and then from there, I shoot my arm through. That's it. It's just a little addition. I'm doing the Kimura correctly, and then I shoot my arm through. If my coach says this is okay, then there's no reason for me not to do that. Because now what I'm doing is I'm drilling the Kimura, and then, hey, if the Kimura doesn't work, I can take the person's back. You need to have those options. You need to have those movements. Or let's say, for example, Chris was standing up. This is another common thing that I'll do. Let's say I drill the sickle sweep here. Boom, I drill the sickle sweep, come here, I come up, and then I just do that really quick, right at the end. I would say most of the time, your instructors aren't gonna have problems with that. Like that type of scenario, if I was a coach and the person just added an X pass at the end, I wouldn't care. So I'm here like this, boom, I come through, then I add a pass at the end. Or, let's say for example, I've been training for a little while. I'm somebody who likes doing wrist locks. My coach knows I like doing wrist locks. And once again, I have permission to do this. I say, hey, when we're doing an arm bar, I'm just going to add a wrist lock at the end. So I have the arm bar here. I come through, I do the arm bar properly, and then I add a wrist lock. Arm bar properly, and then I add a wrist lock. Another thing, example, is with arm drags, I personally don't like just hitting the drag and just taking the back. The reason why I don't like just doing the drag and taking the back is because I believe during the transition, the best time to get the rear naked choke is before the movement is complete. So when I'm here like this, and I come through, let's say just pose, and I go to do the arm drag, and I come through and I'm coming up, I'm already bringing my arm around. I'm not doing anything to deviate from the technique. So if you're one of those people who, like, your instructor teaches you something, you do something completely different, that's not this. What I'm saying is do exactly what your instructor is telling you to do, but then add a minimal movement. It doesn't need to be huge, but add something that can be complemented into this particular movement. So then that way you're training in combination and you're also training transitions. Let's say, for example, I have Chris in side control, right? And he goes to escape, I do the redirection drill. I'm just gonna add a little thing to it. Instead of stopping on side control on the other side, I'm gonna step my leg over like I'm threatening to start taking his back. So we're here like this, he gets an underhook, I block, I come through here, I pull him a little bit, and I throw my leg over. That's it. I'm not fully taking his back. If my instructor says it's okay for me to tip him up and then work to take his back, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong for me to say, like, hey coach, when I do the redirection drill, do you mind if I do a tip up and take his back? They either say yes or no. And honestly, in my opinion, if your instructor is bothered by the fact that you want to drill in combination while doing this, after you did the exact move, that's not something that I agree with, but people have different ways that they run their classes. So the moral of the story, I believe that if you have more experience, if you're like an intermediate advanced player, then you should be adding little things to your class drilling and drill within in combination and add transitions. I think it's going to be helpful to most people. It helps me out. It helps me kind of like ingrain the movements in my brain. Even like the arm drag example, it's made me so much better at attacking for rear naked chokes off of arm drags, because back in the day I used to not do that. I used to just do arm drags, take the back. But now I do arm drags and I go for the choke. I mean, Marcelo Garcia is a perfect example of going for a choke like during the transition of the arm drag. And one of the best ways to get used to doing that is by doing it in class. So try it out. If you have any questions or comments, let me know and post below.